Good afternoon, Internet. This is Internet Roundup. I'm Chuck, and this is Josh, and this is what we do.
Yes.
Once a week.
Yeah.
We find cool stories and spread the joy, or horror, or confusion, or weird stuff.
Whatever. It's just basically exactly like the Internet does.
Sure. And this first piece is from NPR, and it is from Alice Fordham called "Who's That Lebanese Man with a Beard? Hipster or jihadi? ? And apparently, if you live in Lebanon and you want to have the big full beard that's all the rage these days, you might get stopped by the cops and shaken down on a regular basis.
Yeah, because as the author of this article put it eloquently, I think, fashionable beards flourish here, but their soaring style value coincided with the spate of jihadi attacks. I thought that was pretty well written, actually.
It sure was.
And there's this guy named Mazen Hariz. He's a bartender in Beirut. He spends 30 minutes a day on his beard.
It's a little weird.
Washing, shampooing, blows it out with a blow dryer.
I guess so.
And sometimes uses straightener. And he's very proud of his beard, but he's also sick of getting harassed by the cops.
Yeah, he says, the cops will stop him and just say, "Why do you have this beard?" And I guess, his answer isn't good enough because it's just a style thing. So
he's like, "Are you familiar with Brooklyn?"
Yeah, exactly. But he says, "My beard is like my girlfriend," he says during a cigarette break.
Right, and his girlfriend got really mad at that quote, I understand.
I'm sure, because he doesn't shampoo and blow her out with a hairdryer every day. He gives much more attention to his beard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, apparently he says he might just have to shave it because he's tired of getting hassled.
Right, so Mazen Hariz is a bit of a quitter compared to another guy in this article, MC Preacher Man. His name is Hussein Sharafuddin.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think I got it right the second time.
I think that's right.
And he is slightly more defiant, whereas Mazen was a little more downtrodden and sick of getting harassed by the cops. Preacher Man is like, "Let's go, cops."
Well, yeah, because he got stopped one time. He said, "A cop put a gun at my head and told me I'm going to burn your beard."
Yeah.
So that's serious business.
Sure, but the cop apparently was all talk.
Because he didn't burn his beard.
No, but apparently Preacher Man got a little bit of notoriety being arrested for having a beard, basically. And the picture was splashed all over the Lebanese papers. So
yeah,
there's a bit of a struggle going on. But that stinks, to not be able to express yourself.
Sure.
Because you're confused for a jihadi.
Yeah, that's no good. And I probably won't be traveling to Lebanon anytime soon either.
I don't know if you would be taken for a jihadi, Chuck.
No.
Not necessarily.
I got a baby face under this gross thing going on here. And this article next is from the Washington Post. It's called "Typewriters Are Back and We Have Edward Snowden to Thank." Yeah. And it is kind of cool. Like, apparently what's going on in some departments in the United States has never left is the typewriter. Because if you think about it, what is unhackable? A pen and a paper and a typewriter.
Right. I mean, you can get your hands on the actual sheet of paper afterward,
sure,
but not as easy as you can an email or something like that these days. So it makes entire sense. And apparently Germany is saying, we're going to start going back to typewriters, and so is Russia.
Yeah, and London, apparently, the sound of typewriters, they have started pumping into the Times in London and, quote, "an effort to boost staff energy levels, which coincides with a revival of interest in the typewriter," end quote.
Right, so that kind of follows a different trend. Like, on one hand, the typewriters are unhackable. They're secure.
Yeah.
But then apparently there's also a real sense of nostalgia that typewriters bring about, too.
Sure.
And a lot of people seem to be flying in the face of this unrepentant technological progress moving forward, and typewriters are in a rear view. So what are you doing with that? Well, some people are saying, well, I feel comforted by typewriters, and I want a typewriter. I don't care if it's slower than a computer. Yeah,
and the article finishes up with a pretty cool little section called regressive versus progressive in terms of technology. And Nicholas Carr, an American writer, says that some of this technology seizes our attention only to scatter it, which I thought was pretty interesting. He says, "We focus intensively on the medium itself, on the flickering screen, but we're distracted by the medium's rapid-fire delivery of competing messages and stimuli." So the argument that maybe we're not going to be progressing forward if we're going to start using things like Polaroids and typewriters again. He says maybe regressing in terms of technology, but progressing in terms of intellect, creativity, and privacy.
Yeah,
which I think is a pretty decent argument.
Well, plus also there's been recent studies that have found that you absorb much more of what you're reading when you have a physical piece of paper that you're reading off of compared to a computer screen.
Well, sure. I mean, if you look at, most people usually have several tabs open at once on their web browser.
Yeah.
And even just seeing that little tab of your email next to a cool article can be distracting, I think.
Yeah, Nicholas Carr is the guy who wrote like the first definitive article about how, and I think book, about how the internet just shapes our attention.
Yeah.
And the way he put it was, rather than deeply diving into a subject, you just skim the top of many subjects.
Right.
And that I mean, it's true.
Yeah, well, that falls along the same lines of the current trend of not even reading articles, but reading headlines only.
Yeah, like Twitter.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And so just a recommendation, I think he wrote an article in The Atlantic, Nicholas Carr, in 2009-10 called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" If you haven't read that.
That was that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great article.
Read that article.
Yeah, and he has a 2000 book called The Shallows, too, which we can also recommend.
Nice.
So get out your old Underwood typewriter, I guess. I have one in my office at home that actually still works. I need to oil it up a little bit, but all the keys work, and the ribbon works and everything.
Nice.
So I might use it once in the near future, just to see what it's like.
You should. See if it's soothing.
That's right.
That's the Internet Roundup.